There we go. So recording this, it's going to very much be a demo of some of the advanced functionality. We are assuming for this webinar / demo that you already have accounts, that you're familiar a little bit with protocols.io, and this is more kind of some of the advanced features. And if you have questions, do feel free to pop them in. So housekeeping, just webinars being recorded. Anyone who registered today will receive a link to the recording afterwards by email. And please do feel free to add questions to the Q&A box. And I will, if I don't spot them when we're going through, I'll come to them at the end. But if they're relevant at the time and I spot them, then I'll try and answer them as I'm working through the elements that I want to show today. Not quite sure how long it will take, but it won't take a full hour, I don't think, unless you have loads and loads of questions for me, which is absolutely encouraged. If there's functionality you don't know about, but you wonder about, then feel free to add extra questions and go off-piste of the things that are actually on the planned agenda for today. But this is what I'm intending to go through. So some of the more detailed functions in the editor, uploading and importing existing protocols, the components, adding images, videos, and tables, and then also within the file manager, fork versus copy, slightly nuanced terminology that we have, which is not always perhaps the most intuitive. There's a brilliant help page on this, and I'll actually run through that with you today, and also creating collections and how to go about sharing. But as I mentioned, primarily this will be more demo style today. So I will run through, assuming my internet cooperates. I'm in quite remote location in Scotland. So internet willing, we will run through a bunch of features and functionality for you today. So I'm assuming that you are all up and running, that you at least have your own workspace if you don't belong to another more collaborative workspace that someone else has set up. So this is just a demo one that I have. You can see how you can create structure within your workspace for various elements of content that you might be working with. So files to export, protocol files to import, protocols in development, run records if you're actually performing runs of the protocols, published working protocols, unpublished working protocols. You may have a variety of different elements, all sorts of things in here. When you're in there, you'll note that there are slightly different icons, which give you a bit of information about what that is. So this one is a collection. There are multiple protocols together. The orange, these are unpublished, so they have not very user-friendly alphanumeric version identifiers. If they were published, you would very clearly see the version numbers here. Protocol, a file, a document here. These are run records if you've actually recorded runs of protocols, and you can see exactly when they were ran on what date. So I'm going to start with importing or showing you how to upload and import existing protocol files. So there are various ways you can do this to get started if you want to bypass all of the individual kind of steps. So one way is to actually upload a document. So I can attach a file here if I want. So in this, I had protocol files to import, sorry. So here I've got a bunch of protocol files that I've put into this workspace folder previously. They're actually all the same protocol file, but various different document types, just to show you that you can drag drop all different documents into your file manager. But I want to upload the protocol here. I don't have time to fully import this protocol, so that's what I'm going to do. So if I want to, at the very, very quick and dirtiest way, this is my protocol if I've actually done this. So if I downloaded that, you would see that it was a short protocol file that's just in a Word doc. That is the fastest, but definitely the dirtiest way of getting a protocol in. So not necessarily encouraged, but if you're short on time and you have protocol files scattered across your desktop, the very first step is getting them into protocols.io. So this can help you have them in this one place. You could come along later if you don't publish this now, but you just want to keep it for yourself. You can come along later and edit this and add all of the steps in if you want to do that. There is another way though, which is very nifty, I always think. And if we delete this step, actually, where is my delete this one, we'll go back to it being completely new. We can go to insert steps from a text file. So I happen to have a Google Doc which has a multi-step protocol in it. There is also title, author's abstract, before you start, etc. So there's a lot more information, but for the steps part, if I just copy these here, so right click and copy, and go back to my importing steps example. If I click to insert steps from a text file, each number is a step. So my protocol in that Google file were all step numbered. So each number is a step, and I'm going to paste them here. And I tend to do paste and match style, because if you go from a Word doc or a document that has any kind of tagging in it, it will strip the unnecessary tagging out for you. So now you can see I pasted in my steps 1 through 16. I could have said each line is a step. I could have said it was markdown text if it was different content type. And I'll preview that. And you can see that each step now has come in 1 through 16. So that looks pretty good. And we'll add to protocol. So if you do already have content and you want to get it onto protocols.io, this is quite a nice way of doing that. Now, it has some limitations, and you do need to go through and check the formatting once it's come in. Some special characters and things may not copy paste as well as would be ideal. So you do need to go back through and check. And it also won't create components from anything, but you'll have the info there. So 95 degrees C. So I can go through and change these things to temperature, or 5 minutes to, I can use the components, which I'm going to show you in a minute. But that one, 5 minutes, so I can switch them around and go through and enhance it further. But at a minimum, I've got all of that content in one go. I can also add in, obviously, the title, the authors, and so on, but that will be just more copy paste. But you can do abstract, citations, guidelines, warnings before you start. So you can find the locations for the rest of that content. But that's a really nice way of creating your step-by-step protocol actually directly in protocols.io. So that's much more than interactive and dynamic. You can go on and update that, add edits, add new versions, and so on as you may want to generate them. So that is the main part for that, uploading and importing existing protocols. I'm going to click out a couple of these things so I don't get too lost. I was going to run through some examples of components. So hopefully you're all aware that these on the right hand side are what we call the components. When you select to, actually, let me do that quickly, make a new protocol, which will just say MS Workspace, continue. You're prompted to choose a subtype of protocol initially. Oh, I don't know why that's done that. Let's jump back to this. So you're prompted, it's not doing it for me. New protocol, MS Workspace here. To select what kind you would like it to be. Sorry, that's it. Generic, biology, computational, chemistry. When you choose any of these things, it won't actually tie you in to not being able to access the other elements. So if I pick computational here and create, what it does is it preloads the components that you're most likely to use, we think, if your protocol is computationally based. However, you can switch between. So I can also get to the biology, or we've got a few more kind of chemistry relevant things in there. Or if I star things, I can generate my very own favorites list. So, you can go between all of these. So I've got my favorites as well. Jump back, but that's just to show you those. now to give you some of the examples of how you actually use them. So you can, using all of these, and you're encouraged to play around with all of them, add in links to other protocols, for example. So say at the start of your protocol, you know they should be following on from a previous protocol. So if that's the case, you can add in a link to another. As with all live demos, nothing seems to want to work for me now. Let's do a new step and see if it will let me do that now. Okay, so now it will let me add in a protocol. So you can see that I had my protocol above, and I'll just show you how I did that. So my protocol, search for files by me. Anita is another former protocols employee. So we've obviously all done lots of tests on my protocols over the years. So I can link this and load collapsed and save, and it adds in the protocol here. So I've done that twice now, a little bit unnecessary, but what's quite nice is when you actually view the protocol or run, you can open fully a preview of that other protocol, or sorry, there's the actual preview I clicked through. The preview opens here. You can also view all of the steps of that protocol. And if you choose to run this protocol dynamically, you will be prompted to run through that initial protocol as the first steps before you come to the second step of the current protocol. So they're all added in as sub-steps. So it's a very nice way of, if you have sub-protocols that are repeated regularly, you can create an individual protocol for the sub part, and then they become modular. You can slot them in into various different protocols as they become relevant to you. Let me go back to edit. I will run through some of the other components. Hopefully you all know you can generate quantities, and actually I could actually put in here reagent A, and so then you've got exactly what it is that you're putting in, so we don't need that at that point. Mix for, we want duration 30 minutes, that's pulled that in very nicely. You could say overnight, you could put additional information if it was relevant here. Sorry, let me just try and make that a little bit bigger. Where I've now added the time here as the component, it's added it to the duration of this step. And again, if you run through the protocol dynamically, you will even see a timer, so you can run the timer from within the run record if you want to do so. You can add a relevant note. And that will go in. We can show collapsed as default. So that's in. If I view that now, it's collapsed. So if you want this to be something that people only expand if they need the extra information, then they can do that this way. It's supposed to be just putting the subhead in. I think the developer's working on that now, but you can see how you can add in relevant info that might, maybe you need to read it the first time you run the protocol, but you don't need to read it the rest of the time. So leaving it collapsed is completely fine for advanced users. Similarly, we can add in safety info, very similar to the note, but red, hopefully to draw the eye, and you can do exactly the same with that as needed. Smart components are very nice. If you have points during the protocol when you need to collect specific information, so perhaps it's the number of cells in the microscope field, and you can require this, then we can put something else here. I'm trying to think, percent of atrophy or something. Maybe it's even just an approximation, but you can add in all of these elements, and it's entirely user designed. So it's whatever's relevant to your protocol at that point in time, and add that as a component. And when a user runs through the protocol, if it's a required field, they will not be able to pass that step until they've completed that information. So they will have to complete that. I'll show you the run in a moment. but it's particularly nice if you just want to ensure checks and measures for gathering info during the protocol. You can add sub-steps, so that's very easy too. You've got an option to do sub-step on the right if you right click. Also at the bottom, you can do sub-step, new step, new sub-step, new section. I'm assuming people know about sections, section 3, section 2. They're color coded. They allow you to see where you are through the protocol. That's also visible from the table of contents on the right. And if you're viewing the protocol, you can see those here too. So if you have very long and complex multi-part protocols, you can jump around in the protocol from the table of contents. So that's quite nice too. Let me go back to edit. So we hit our sub-steps. We can add images. So, you should poke around with all of the buttons up above, obviously, but insert image or video. If you have a short video on your desktop or on your phone, you can do this in exactly the same way, but you can also just add in images. So I just have an example image. Take a moment to just upload that. And then my image is in there. So I can give it a figure legend. Let me put a line space before because it's gone above. So add an image. If you want to delete that, you can do this. If you want a drop, I didn't mean to do. If you want a drop shadow, you can do that here to, pull the image out and add the figure legend. So if you had short videos, I think up to about a gig, you can add those in this way too. So if you've just taken a short movie on your phone, you can add that in the same way. If you have a larger video that's more complex and complicated, you can put that on somewhere like YouTube or Vimeo and grab embed code. So if I want to embed specifically a movie here that I've already got on YouTube, paste your embed code. So I have found, if people haven't watched this, it's a very fun recording, the exact instructions challenge. It's worth a watch. He challenges his children to show him how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwich, very American, obviously, but it's cute when he follows their instructions, which are not as comprehensive as the children might like to think. So I recommend looking that up if you want a nice example of how not to make protocols reproducible. Point of this, though, is if you jump to share and go to embed, you can grab the embed code and copy, and we will go back on this one, and I'll paste that here. So I've just copied in the embed code and save, and a link straight through to that video. It's embedded into the protocol here. So if you have like a video instruction on how to do the protocol, you can drop that in really easily right into the protocol. Same thing if it's a short video from your phone, it will pull in as well. You can add tables. So again, from the top bar here, you can just add small tables, format them. So maybe we're back at number of cells, and we'll say we've got 5 and 3, value B, we've got 7 and 4, and here we can just do very, very simple Excel formula equivalent like this, and it will work very much the same way as Excel. So you can add, carry out some simple equations this way. If you left the equation part or the value part empty until you ran the protocol, you'd be able to have those calculations happen within the run record, if that makes sense. It is not really a proxy for Excel, but it does allow you to do some rudimentary calculations within the context of the protocol as you run through. Oh, I wanted to do a table twice, obviously. Step case. So if you're working on a protocol and at a certain point, there are pathways that can be followed, perhaps depending on specific conditions or just different scenarios, etc., you can make a step case. So I've already done that here, but if I did another one after, you can just see, or maybe you'd have to do it at the bottom. It's new step case, sorry. So new step case is at the very bottom. So I've already created one here, and I've got condition A, so it will come up blank and you'll get to edit them. So if A, follow this, so you follow this pathway perhaps, and then condition A is the short title of this, and we would add some more information here. So you can see how that comes through, and then every step that follows here will only show up for this step case. So condition A has 2 more steps. Condition B, again, if B, follow this. Condition B, first step, you can see it doesn't have that extra step, but I can add more steps here. And I can add another case if I wanted. So this could be condition C, and you just get the idea of how that goes. You cannot merge them back. It's computationally too difficult to do that. But if you have them eventually coming back to the same process and protocol steps after a certain period of time, you can just copy paste steps across. So you should be able to kind of not have to recreate them every time. You can also link obviously to a sub protocol if you come back to something else. So that's just one option for the use of step cases. I haven't gone through all of the components, but I've covered a few of them. There are many more in there. If you get down to a step and you want to point people back up to an earlier step to repeat something as a part of a step case, for example, you can use go to. What other things did I not show? I did not show how to add these on the left. So you can add critical steps, so information about what's actually going to be happening at a certain point in time, including pause points if something's particularly toxic or overnight this way. So I don't really have relevant points on here, but just for showing you, we can say this is a pause point perhaps, and they show up quite nicely on the left hand side. So then if you're viewing the protocol at a glance, when you scan through, you can see when you have pause points and things like this. Just in order to show you how especially the step case works, if you run the protocol, we will just say run. So at each step, you can add a note. And it will pop that here. So as you perform parts of the protocol, you can add specific observations or things that happened relevant on that day. You can actually edit a step if you want. So you could edit this to change B to C if you wanted today. That would not edit the actual root protocol. It only edits the step, so you can see what you did. When you have values like these, you can scale them if you want. So if you're making a master mix and you want to make more today, you know, you've got a bit more capacity and want to generate some stocks, you can scale them too, and it will capture that you've done those things. So we can just skip through these things. There's a timer in this sub-step of that previous protocol, so you could run the timer here if you wanted. It has a link to the reagents specifically. I haven't shown you that, but you can add reagents and keep records of all of the reagents and things that you've done. So we're going to jump through a few more. Now I'm at that smart component, so it will not let me move forward here until I actually fill in the answers. So it will let me go ahead, but only once both of those fields are completed. These are just other parts. Done. If I wanted, as I mentioned, if I actually added the numbers because I was noting them down during the experiment, I can do that now, and you can see that the equation pulls through, so it calculates on the basis of what actually has gone into the table rather than what was in it initially. So if they were blank, I could complete that during the run of the protocol. The step case, this is where you can pick which one you follow. So we would go with condition B today, first step, second step, and then that whole thing is completed. If I'd picked one of the others, I would have run through that one. So that's how that works. And then we can save, and we'll say now, so you pick exactly when you ran it, or if you had some other way that you wanted to store the information, and we'll pop that in my run records. And that will have added it to my file manager. So let me go back to my run records. That's not where I've ended up. Where am I? There we go. Run records. And so that was my component examples that's been run today, January 19th, 11:28 a.m. So you then can either keep these here or export them to an electronic lab notebook if you want to do that. Very, very easy to click on the file and export PDF. You can choose various different locations. So to your computer, if you want to just take them off, or some external drive. We have a link and a tie-in with Lab Archives. So if you have a Lab Archives account, you can push directly to your notebook on Lab Archives. We do have some links with other lab notebooks. Right now we have links with RSpace and SciNote, but for those you go from the lab notebook to your protocols account. So you can sign into that lab notebook account and pull from your protocols.io account after kind of a sign-in step through that. But hopefully that gives you an idea of being able to keep track of what you did on a given day for the experiment and have that date time-stamped and correlate it with any data that you generated on that day. This is very, very complementary to a lab notebook. Okay, so that's components and images, videos, and tables. I have got down next fork, copy version. Okay, oh, well, we don't want that one yet then. Let me go back to the actual protocol. Well, ideally with something in it. So let's go back to the component examples. Oh, I don't know what I did. Jumping around tonight. Where did that go? Okay, so for fork copy version, you can at any time make a new version of a protocol. So from the view, you can create new version. So if I had published this, I could then go on to make a new version because I've got some fancy new equipment and I want to update the protocol for use with the new equipment, which has some slightly different criteria that needs to be met, or whatever the situation might be. So I can make a new version, select where I want to put it, and create new version. So we'll just pop that in my workspace as well. And that will go in there for me to start working on. And it will be linked with the first version. They still have their slightly weird alphanumerics, but you can see that you would always be able to tell if you've done these on different dates, which one was the new one and which one was the older one, and so on. But if they were published, it would be much clearer because they would be versions 1, versions 2, etc. Anyone can come along and make a new version of your protocol, but another person, only if they have access to it, another person can't publish a new version of your protocol. They would have to request to merge it and merge back to the original one, which I can do very easily because it's mine. So now they've become one again, if you like, but at that point I would be able to publish, but not until it had been merged back with the original one. If it was your protocol and someone else had made a new version of it, you would have to approve the merge. So they would not be able to come in and merge without you accepting the merge. There would be a request would go to you that someone has requested to merge back to your protocol. So if anyone ever uses GitHub for code, it follows approximately a similar way of working than that. Let me also talk about forks and copies though as well. If you are looking at a published protocol that someone else has already published, you can think, oh, that's really amazing. I do something similar, but I know I'm going to need to make some changes to this long and complicated protocol to make it work for me because my setup's a bit different. I have some different reagents, whatever the case might be. On that protocol, you can come along and make a fork. So fork is a copy that you can modify and share, and it preserves a link to the original for crediting. I can make a copy of this because I have super user powers within protocols.io, but normally only the owner of the protocol can make a copy direct. So most of you would only be able to make a fork. So I'm going to call this Emma's copy of, typing's going to pop, need more coffee, and we'll pop that back in my workspace, and that will go through. Did that work? I'm not sure. Continue. It's going to ask me if I want to edit that in just a moment, and so we'll go in and we'll start editing. Thinking. So now I've got Emma's copy of that brilliant protocol. So I can come in and make all sorts of changes to this for whatever's relevant for my version of this protocol that I need to get it working. What is very nice is if we go back to the workspace, that now shows up that I've made this fork. You can see the little icon, which looks like a little fork, and it tells me exactly where that protocol was forked from and the owner of that protocol. So if I went on to publish this, it would also show up on the protocol as well that it was forked from that protocol. So actually, if I view that copy that I made the fork of, you can see where it came from. So it's a wonderful way to see the reuse of protocols that you publish if you do make them publicly available, or internally, if you're forking like this to create new slight just permutations of the same protocol. Maybe it's for application in one instance in kidney cells, maybe in another instance it's for application in liver cells. You can see essentially the phylogeny of the protocol and where it came from and how it was evolved. And if I want to, and I see one that's forked like this, I can also, I haven't actually, oh, it's not, doesn't like it because I'm too low down the page. I've got limited space on my laptop with the screen. Let me move that up more. There we go, compare. So I can do a comparison of my version to the version that I copied it from, that I forked it from. So it's flagging up the notes because it's not necessarily comparing the content in the notes, but otherwise it would show me if I changed this to 3 mil wash buffer, you'd see that highlighted here. So you can see the changes between the protocols if you want to. So I had though a link to our help page. So I'm just going to jump to that. I probably do have it open somewhere, but I start to get confused with all the windows. So this has a lovely explanation, and I'm going to pop it into the chat. So you've got the link of the differences and the nuance between version, fork, and copy, because it is quite difficult to explain and give that explanation to, but we've tried to add some potential use cases. So fork, a single sample protocol for multiplexing, different kit equipment for the same technique, or slight modifications for different sample species strains. So they're kind of examples of when you would fork. Copy is you have a collection of protocols with the same abstract, authors, affiliations, acknowledgements, but the steps in each one are different. So you can copy your own sort of template, if you will, that you create for protocol, so that you can use that over and over again. And the versioning is when it's the same protocol which has been updated. You may want to use that to rectify errors or clarifications. Because we have the lovely commenting functionality, which hopefully you've seen before, people can come along and ask questions. Either your internal teams, or if you've published, external users can add comments and questions to protocols. So if it becomes clear that there's a step that's not as obvious as it should be what exactly to do, and you need to clarify, you can clarify that in a new version, and add a note about what is new when you make and publish a new version of the same protocol. A couple last things to go through. One was a collection. So or collections in general, when you are creating all of your protocols, maybe you have a very clear collection or grouping of protocols that you're going to use as a part of one research project and one research paper. So in the paper, you want to include a link to all of the collection of different protocols that you have created, rather than lots of separate individual protocol links. So you can look for public protocols. You can also search your own files. So I had a couple of example ones that I've been working with today. So I've got my importing steps example. So that's maybe one of my collection. And then I've got my component one that I was working on examples, actually now 2 versions of. So you can see how you can add links to various different protocols. You can change the order around really easily for these. You can add the same things like descriptions, guidelines, materials and methods, give it a title in the same way you would anything else, and view. And now you'll see that you come in and there are links to each of the protocols. So if I were to publish this and obtain a DOI, it would give me a single DOI for the whole collection. It will also create individual DOIs for any sub protocols in there that I've included that aren't yet published. So they would automatically be published at the same time. And so it can save you time as well. If you've got 5 protocols that are all going into one research paper, put them all into a collection. You only need to run through that publish process once you've got everything to the stage that you're happy with it, and they'll all be published at the same time. And then users can be pointed, or readers of the paper can follow a single link which will bring them to all of the protocols in that collection at the same time. So that's collections, and there's no limit here. You can add as many as you want to that. The last thing on my list is sharing. So we'll, for the purpose of this now, just give you the example here. So when you're viewing your protocol or your protocol collection, you'll see share. So this is another one that's in. Share comes up as soon as it has a step in it. So you can do the share from anywhere, any protocol collection. At the top right, this is a private link to be used for giving to reviewers or someone external who doesn't have an account, but you just want them to have a look at the protocol. They will not have any dynamic interaction capability. They won't be able to comment. They won't be able to run. They will purely get a view only version of the protocol from that link. So that comes up here. Private link, or even a blind review link if you wanted one. If you would like to have the protocol reviewed as part of a paper but want to strip any author information, if you're wanting to do double blind review. More commonly though, if you're looking to share with your internal collaborators or other people anywhere, you can look for them if they have an account, or you can just start putting in their email account. So I was going to share with Lenny, that's my boss at Protocols, and he's been now added. He's not got access until I click save. So you do need to remember to click save. I can control the permissions as well that he has over this protocol though. So I can say can view. He would be able to view, he'll be able to run it. He'll be able to add comments, but he won't be able to actually edit the protocol itself. I can let him edit it directly. I can give him rights to edit and publish without additional confirmation. So he would be able to do that independently of me. Or I could make him co-admin. And if he was co-admin, he could go on to share it with other people and do other things like that with it. So that's the way to share with individual users. You can also search specific workspaces and share with an entire workspace. If you're a member of a group workspace and you want to share with everybody in that workspace, so we have a demo group, a protocols.io demo group. I would like to share this with that whole workspace and everyone in that group, and it wants me to pick a folder in there. I'm just going to pick the top folder. And again, I can say what permissions they have in that workspace over any of the content in this protocol. So can view or can edit. And it's already in my workspace. So anyone who was in my workspace would already be able to have edit and publish rights over this, because that's how I've got my workspace set up. But if I save that, then those people will have that. You can notify by email. So Lenny will have got an annoying email from me now telling him that I've just shared this with him. I'm going to take it off again now. So he'll be even more annoyed when he clicks it and it goes nowhere, but I can take them off in the same way. So there are lots of different ways to share with other users that way. You can also get to that from the view part. So share is here, and also in the file manager. So if you have a protocol, when you're in the file manager, you'll see lots of the things I've talked about, the copy, fork, share, etc., all on the right hand side. Finally, you can transfer ownership, which is a nice functionality too. So if you've put all of the protocol in as the lab lackey, but actually it should be owned by the PI or the leader of the group, you can transfer ownership of a protocol to another user. So again, I mean, if I wanted, I could give I could transfer this file completely to Lenny. He would then own that protocol. I won't do that now. He would get a notification that he can accept the transfer. He can decline it if he wants to as well. And notifications will always show up with the numbered bubbles, and you'll see all sorts of different notifications about when users have added comments to your protocols or other protocols. But also if someone shared a file with you, I don't have any pending, or transferred ownership to you, you would see them all here. And I think that's probably everything I was gonna run through today. So just to finish up and note that we have webinars that we run periodically. You've obviously been alerted to this one. There's a listing of them online, so you can follow the link there. We also have some tutorials available, and you can sign up for an individual demo. So if you really specifically want help with one piece of functionality, or just want something to be run over in a more personalized way, follow the link here. There are always a few sessions each week that are kind of on this time zone, and then others that are covering different time zones. So please do feel free to contact with any follow-up questions or to sign up for a demo and things like this. But I've got a few minutes if people want to ask any questions. I can see Laurent said, very nice and clear presentation. Thank you, Laurent. Please feel free to add any other questions into the Q&A, and I'll answer if I can. I can also stop the recording at this point, so